The woods were dark, and Pa was all alone. His hands were full of supplies that he had picked up from the store, and he was hiking back through the dark Wisconsin woods to a little cabin where his 3 little girls and lovely wife were waiting for him. Now, the day hadn't gone how he had planned, and he was running very late, and he was worried because the springtime was just around the corner. And in Wisconsin, right around this time of the year, the bears started to come out of their caves and dens. And when the bears came out after their long winter's nap, they were hungry and cranky. And Pa didn't have his gun. He didn't think he needed it, and his hands were full of supplies. And he just prayed and hoped that he didn't bump into a bear on his way back to that little cabin in the woods. Well, Pa stepped into a clearing and immediately saw in the middle of a clearing in the moonlight a giant black bear. The bear had heard him before he came into the clearing, and he had stood up on his 2 feet, and he was there right in the middle of the meadow. Well, Pa froze, but he knew the bear could see him because the bear was facing straight at him. Pa didn't really know what to do. He couldn't go around the bear, because then if the bear decided to stalk him, the bear would have all the advantages. And the meadow was the place where Pa could see the best. And even if he did get rid of this bear, there were more out there. What could he do? And then Pa thought about his little girls and how they were expecting him to be there when they woke up the next morning. And so he made himself as big as he could, and he rushed at the bear, screaming and yelling at the top of his lungs. The bear didn't move. So Pa stopped about 10 feet away from the bear. He yelled again, but the bear just stood there with its arms raised, not afraid of Pa at all. Well, Pa looked around and he saw a big stick on the ground. And he shifted the supplies and he bent down and picked up that big stick. And he rushed at the bear, and he whacked the bear as hard as he could right across the face with his club. And then he realized that what he had hit was not a bear, but a stump with 2 limbs sticking up. And the way the moonlight had caught it, it looked exactly like a bear. Well, Pa shook a little bit and laughed and tossed the club aside. And then he kept going the rest of the way to the cabin. Now, fortunately for Pa, he didn't meet a bear that night. But for a while there, he thought he had. And the way Pa handled his fear teaches us a good lesson of how we should handle ours. You see, many times when we're afraid, it's because we're thinking about ourselves. Pa was worried about getting attacked by a bear. But what gave him courage was he thought of those 3 little girls waiting for him to come home. And that thought of those little girls who were waiting for their daddy transformed Pa from a scared young man into a bear fighter. You see, Jordan Peterson told his son when he was growing up, whenever they would watch a movie and there would be a scary part, Jordan Peterson said, "Don't look at the bad guys, watch the hero." You see, the principle is, what we look at directly affects how we feel. Now, there is a ton in the world to look at to make you very afraid. I'm sure there's a ton to look at yourself and make you feel ashamed and weak or sinful or dirty. But let's take a lesson from Pa, the hero from the stories of Laura and the Little House on the Prairie series. Let's take a lesson from him. Let's look at others who we can help. Maybe someone who's depending on us, someone who needs us to step up and conquer that fear or face that addiction down. Or we can look at Jesus, who faced the greatest fear ever and who tells us that he is the author and finisher of our faith. See, I wish I could come into your life and take away every single thing that's stressing you out, every single thing that's making you afraid. And you'd feel good for a little bit. But let's be honest, if that happened, you'd stop growing. You'd stay right where you are. Those things in our life right now, even though they're unpleasant, they're opportunities to grow. They're opportunities for us to realize, hey, my focus is on this thing I'm afraid of. I'm thinking about the riots or the virus or my health or whatever it is you're thinking about. And it's a wake-up call to think about something else, or to think about someone else. You see, God is good, and He has got this. And if you look at Him, not only will He give you His peace, but He'll give you His courage as well. You got this. Focus on God, and He'll get you through today. God bless.